February edition, I have a few birds to show that I found particularly interesting this past month, and then I'll have a small science tidbit at the end. So I like this, even though it's sort of a washed out white-throated sparrow by Margaret Pothink. I like the situation where it was, the scenery. Jim Ivet had captured this picture of two bald eagles at Seneca Creek State Park at Clopper Lake. And I always like looking at bald eagles. So
that was the day when we had that was when he had the area of all the lakes were frozen or local ponds were frozen, and the opening by the dam on Clopper was open. All the waterfowl were in there, and those two eagles just were up in there and watching everything.
They knew that they were there. Like this picture by Ann Mitek of two tundra swans nearby at Little Seneca Lake. Oops. Dave Roberts took this nice picture of, I guess, a golden crown kinglet starting a dive at along the C&O Canal. I like this picture of a tundra swan with the lighting by Carla Morris at Violet's Lock. Well, next, okay. Mark Ross took this nice picture of a yellow-bellied sapsucker with some of its holes that it had pecked, again in Black Hill Regional Park. Another picture by Anne of this time of a northern pintail, and I just thought that the reflection, the posture of the pintail and everything was really cool. Next, okay. This is one I did. I just wanted to show off this BirdFi bird activated camera feeding system that my wife gave me last year for my birthday. So many of you know that I have a pine warbler that seems to visit my feeders every winter. And this is like the 6th winter in a row that it's come by. And so let's see if I can get this, push the next, let's see. There you go. So it was snowing and it was looking for food. You always think of them as eating bugs, I guess, but you'll get the seeds out of here as well. Although he didn't seem to take anything that time. Next. Okay. Oh, now it's working. Now it's I like this barred owl that Evelyn Ralston took a picture of at Swains Lock on the C&O Canal. I love the way it's sort of hidden but peeking out. Impressed that they found it. Maybe it was obvious, but I think it's pretty cool. Sandra Rosenhaus took this picture of American tree sparrow at Homestead Farm. I don't know if there are more of them these days in Montgomery County or birders out and about with cameras, but seem to be lots of people running into American tree sparrows, which I think is great. Well, so this is just, these aren't the greatest pictures in the world, but they're of an uncommon species, lesser blackback gull that Dave Roberts found at Violet's Lock on February 8th. And then I happened to be with him and Dave Zaplik. Another one, immature one, was found 2 days later, at the same place across from Blockhouse Point. So that also leads me into my science tidbit, because many of you have probably noticed that the clicker's not working. So many of you noticed that gulls, terns, kittiwakes, many of them, are probably most of them in this order, have gray or black wings and the mantle. And actually, some of the scientists who study these colorations consider the wings plus the center of the back as below the nape as the mantle, as opposed to us who sometimes think of the mantle as just below the nape, separate from the wings. So anyways, I'm going to use mantle as all encompassing if I mention it at all. So most of these have this gray on the back of the wings to dark, as in the great blackback gull, and most of them have black tips, but not all, like the ivory gull, which I've never seen, but is further north, and all it has are black legs, I guess, and a little yellow on the bill. So why do they have this color? So we're going to delve into some physics here to try to understand what's going on. Okay, so there'll be a quiz at the end. All right, okay, you've got all that? All right, so next. So I'm just kidding. And this was one example to look at whether or not the melanin offers increased structural stability, toughness to the feathers in which it's deposited. And probably does, but there's not complete consensus in the field. So if you really want to study the physics, you can go to these two papers. The one on the left thought that there was no mechanical differences between the melanized and unmelanized barbs. Those are the things that parts that come off the stem of the feather in osprey feathers, whereas this other group thought that the keratin from a grouse primary feathers made them significantly harder, and they just hypothesized that the probability of failure due to fracture would be considerably lower in those. The study on the left actually took feathers and tried bending them to break and measured it along different parts of the feather. So what are the potential roles of melanin in bird feathers? Well, as I mentioned, feather strengthening, it's unclear. It probably has some effect on hardening and making them more resistant to like air particles. Some people have postulated that UV radiation protection is part of it, but there's really no evidence. And I would think, and so do many people, that melanin in the skin, not the feathers, would be more important for protection. So I think it's probably accepted that melanin can be a sign of fitness in different birds, in addition to just signaling what species you are or what sex you are. But there's, I guess, studies that show that the house sparrow bib, the intensity of it is a sign of fitness. At least that's how females interpret it. It could perhaps also be used for camouflage. For example, counter shading, with the upper side of a seabird being dark and the underside being pale, which allows them to be less conspicuous from above when you're looking down on a dark back, and from below when you're looking up at the lighter part of the bird against the sky or clouds. But another interesting possibility is that the melanin coloration increases lift while flying. So some more physics on the right there. Again, you don't have to pay much attention to it, but this Hassanalian has postulated that the dark color on the wing increases the temperature of the boundary layer. And that is this region above the schematized wing here, below the free airstream is flowing through. So this velocity boundary area, because of the gray absorbing heat and then radiating heat back out, becomes warmer, and that increases lift. And then in a subsequent study, they looked at albatrosses, which have darker colored wings, and they believe that that makes them more efficient. They have a better lift with drag reduction. And they did some calculations looking at what would happen with different colored wings from black through red, green and gray and so forth to white, and showed that the amount of drag is less the darker the wings are. And this this became more apparent with an increased angle of attack or ascent. They also thought that this reduction in drag would be more prominent in the summer and warmer latitudes closer to the equator, where they could get more sun and more heat. So what does that have to do with all these gulls? So one hypothesis is that the darker upper surfaces improve flight efficiency. Therefore, birds with less efficient wing shapes would have darker upper surfaces to compensate, right? So if your wings are more bulky, you need more help, and so you're more likely to have darker wings. So this person, Gumas, looked at this in a number, I think like 40 or 50 different gulls, and showed that there was a correlation. Oops, sorry. Now it's working. Go back. Can we go back? Good. One more. There we go. Oops. I can splice that all out. Okay. So they looked at the mantle darkness and compared it to wing loading. And wing loading is the bird's body mass per unit of wing area. So they were taking that as a measure of difficulty in flying or efficiency. And what they found was that the more wing loading there was, the greater the body mass per unit area of wing, the more darkness there was. And obviously, there are numbers of birds that are outside this line, but the trend was significant. And just for kicks, they also looked at mean darkness as mean darkness as a function of latitude from the equator. So here would be the equator, and here would be further north or south from the equator. And in general, the further away they were, the less dark they had on their mantle, so which went along with the first group's, the last group's thoughts about summer and latitude as well. And this last slide is just for reference, but if you want to see the anatomy of a bird feather, this is the shaft or rachis or rachis, and there's numerous ways to say that. And off of the rachis comes the barbs, which are the ones that they were studying the melanin in, and the barbs have these little barbules with hooklets, and hooklets allow these barbules to stick together and give some connection or togetherness of the feather parts. Okay, so that's it. And I don't know if anybody has any questions about that. If you have questions about the physics, I refer you to the papers. No, it's not only an advantage in summer, but it's more helpful in the summer because they get more sun, more heat to increase the lift. I mean, that's the hypothesis anyways. So the question is, would painting the upper surface of an airplane help? And actually, I think that the Australians were also interested in how to make drones fly more efficiently, and that's part of the reason they were studying this. So I think it would, but I don't know for sure. But I didn't go into airplanes. Yeah, I don't think I've actually noticed any airplanes I fly on that whose top of the wings are painted black, so.
As you were showing that airflow, that's also see that analysis, and you can see that portion that you see that there's a lot of heat that's being generated by the darkness that's being radiated out, and that's warming up really the vortices. It is that helps with the lift.
Yeah, I don't know why the SR-71 is all black. That might be part of it, or it might be the materials it was made out of to make it less radio dense or something like that.